Greetings, this is Casabez Makama reporting live again from Hammond, Indiana for another episode of Meridian World News. This is our digest for the week, just to give a recap of what happened over the last week. And it's been a lot that's happened. We have a lot of information to share. I'm going to hop right into it. On the 4th of May, the president of Tanzania gave a press conference in which he said that he has tested different fruits and animals for, and even crude oil, I think, or gasoline, for the COVID-19 virus or the SARS-CoV-2 virus. We're just going to go right into the video. Compliments of Brother Wode Maya.
I was supposed to take you guys to the largest island in Africa, that is Madagascar, who found the cure for COVID-19. I mean, it's not approved yet, but it's still treating people. But this story is trending. So many Tanzanians are sending to me. And the video was in Swahili. I don't know why Tanzanians think that, yo, I can speak Swahili. All I know is nakula kuku, unafana nini, mambo poa. And I'll teach you guys the rest. So His Excellency Magufuli came out to say that the test kit for COVID-19, they tested it on pawpaw, they tested it on animals, and they are all testing positive. And I feel like this story is supposed to be shared around the world. So if you're watching this video for the first time, I translated this. Big shout out to Peace for translating this for us. All you need to do is to share so that this message will reach a lot of people.
Watanzania, simameni imara. Huu ugonjwa utaisha, utapita. Tunapata changamoto lakini tutazitatua. Ninawasiliana Madagascar na wameshaandika barua. Wanasema kuna dawa zimepatikana kule. Tutatuma ndege kule na dawa zile zitaletwa pia ili Watanzania nao waweze kufaidika nayo. Kwa hiyo sisi serikali tuko tunafanya kazi usiku na mchana. Tulichukua sample za mbuzi, tukachukua sample za kondoo, tukachukua sample za papai, tukachukua sample za oili ya gari na sample za vitu vingine mbalimbali, tukavipeleka pale kwenye maabara bila wao kujua, na tukazipa majina. Sample ya oili kwa mfano iliyotoka kwa gari tulilipa jina ya Jabiri Hamza mwenye miaka 30, male. Ile ilileta negative. Tulipopeleka sample ya fenesi ambalo tuliipa jina la Sara Samuel miaka 45, female, matokeo yake yalikuwa unconclusive. Tulipopeleka sample ya papai tukaipa jina Elizabeth Anne miaka 26, female, papai lile lilikuwa positive kwamba lina corona. Maana yake maji mle ndani zilizotolewa mle kwenye papai ni positive. Tulipeleka sample ya ndege Kware, imekuwa positive. Tumepeleka sungura, ikawa determinant. Tumechukua mbuzi, akawa positive. Tukachukua kondoo, akawa negative, na kadhalika na kadhalika. Sasa ukishaona umepeleka sample ukamwambia huyu ni binadamu, halafu ikaji ikaletewa positive kwamba ina corona, maana yake labda mapapai yote yale nayo yangewekewa isolation. Ukipeleka mbuzi za sample nazo zikawa positive, maana yake mbuzi wote tulionao hapa labda by assumption au huyo mbuzi waliopelekwa nao walitakiwa wapewe kwenye isolation. Ukipeleka fenesi likawa positive, makamasi yake yale ambalo tuliyapa jina la Elizabeth, maana yake Elizabeth fenesi, nayo mafenesi yalitakiwa yawekwe isolation. Kwa hiyo ukishagundua kitu hiki, lazima ujue kuna mchezo wa ajabu unafanyika kwenye vipimo hivi, kwamba kuna mambo ya ajabu yanafanywa katika nchi hii. Aidha wahusika wa laboratory ile wamenunuliwa na mabeberu, aidha hawana utaalamu, which is not true, kwa sababu maabara hii imetumika sana kwenye magonjwa mengine. Aidha zile sample zinazoletwa, kwa sababu mpaka reagent zinatoka nje, mpaka zile swap, zile vipamba vya kuweka kwenye nani mle vinatoka nje. Kwa hiyo lazima kuna kitu fulani kinafanywa. Mapapai nayo yanaonekana ni positive, yana corona. Basi WHO inatakiwa ifanye kazi.
Very interesting, very interesting. We have here it's something that I've never heard of before. Apparently they fooled the laboratory and thought the laboratory thought they were testing people, and they're testing animals and fruits, and some of them came back positive, some came back indeterminate, inconclusive results. So that means there's something going on. Either there's coronavirus in these fruits and animals, which is like saying, you know, how come those animals and fruits are not, you know, infecting people too? Or maybe there's something wrong with the test, or wrong with the equipment being used, something wrong with the swabs that's being used. Who knows? I'm not drawing any conclusions on this. It's just very interesting. I thought I'd kick off the episode showing that and let you guys think about it. Just to let everybody know, there's no agenda that we have. We're not pushing any kind of agenda. Ujai Brother Sanun. We're not pushing any kind of agenda here. We just asking questions. We're trying to figure out what's going on, just like you guys. And if, you know, this disease is as deadly as they say, or if it's not. And what is the real reason why we're being isolated, why we're being forced to stay home, why people are not forced to not work. They're losing their jobs. It's one thing if it's just the economy that's suffering. The economy, you know, I don't care. But this is people's lives being affected by this. So while people are very determined to say that we should stay closed, that everything should stay closed while this disease is still out there, how long is that going to be? Because it doesn't look like it's possible that this virus is going away, first of all. So how long are we going to just, you know, live like this? And what is the effect? What is the danger? If people can recognize the danger of a virus, what's the danger of shutting the world down for this virus too? And is this virus so much more deadly than the other things that we have seen in the world? Those are questions that we need to answer, because if it's not more deadly than the other viruses that are out here that we deal with every day, that we're always having to contend with, that are killing people in real life, that people are always dying, just like everybody ends up having to die anyway from something. If it's not that much worse than the other ones that we're dealing with all the time, why are we shutting down for it? So right now we're going to get into a new solution that's been promoted by the country of Madagascar. The president of Madagascar publicly came out and endorsed a new herbal treatment for COVID-19. And this can be preventative as well, they're saying. So this treatment, you know, according to this article here, and you can see other documented sources of this, you know, it's kind of being ridiculed in the West as not being scientifically proven. Oh, it's just plants, whatever. But the evidence shows there's 0 deaths from COVID-19 in Madagascar, which means that whatever they're doing is working. Whatever they're doing is worth the West looking into and trying to see, okay, what can they learn from it? You see, and this remedy is being sought after very widely in Africa, and they're giving it to African countries in bulk for free. Tanzania has already been reported as picking up their shipment, as the Tanzanian president said a minute ago in the other video. This is, this is a serious thing. Enough people are taking this seriously. For those of us in countries who haven't figured it out, who haven't come up with the answer to solve this problem, why are we not looking to countries who should? It's just arrogant. It's just arrogant to say, oh, these backwards, third world countries in Africa, why they don't know how to do scientific testing. It's not tested. But the proof is there. Name one country in Africa that has even the death. I mean, you look at the whole continent, more or less, and it's about the same or maybe less deaths than just one city in Chicago. And Chicago's not even the worst one here in the U.S. We're gonna go ahead and oh, by the way, they're giving away this remedy for free. They're giving it away for free. They're not even profiting from this. So, and additionally, when they do sell it, they're going to be selling it for like 40 cents a bottle. So they're making it very affordable. So this isn't a capitalistic move by Madagascar either. So I think that's important to note. But I'll also note that, weeks ago, Zimbabwe had already approved the use of herbal medicine for COVID-19, and other countries too. Every country, whether the government endorses it or not, in Africa, people know when it gets comes down to it, the herbs are what they know how to use to heal themselves, and they've been doing it for thousands of years there, from all types of natural occurring diseases that you'll find in Africa, that most of us in the West, when we go to Africa, will get sick because we don't know how to handle it. Our bodies aren't accustomed to it. So you tell me, who needs to learn from who? Let's give another example. And this video, there's a nurse in New York. Last week, I was showing an anonymous video from a New York nurse talking about how the hospitals are killing people in New York. Now, this other nurse wanted to stay anonymous. So this is a different nurse who's just very upfront in just putting herself out there about what's going on in this hospital where she's working. Let's take a look.
This is exactly what happened before at the other hospital. As soon as I told somebody from like management and tried to advocate for my patient, they take the patient away from me and then they move me. Like literally, like Black lives don't matter here. They don't care what is happening to these people. They don't. I'm literally coming here every day and watching them kill them. I know not everybody's gonna live. I'm not that fucking green or ignorant or, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to think that, okay? I know we're gonna have a shit ton of people die. But these people aren't dying from COVID. Let me give you several examples here. An anesthesiologist intubated the patient's, I think it was right bronchi and of a patient, and they couldn't get the sats up, and for about 5 hours we were waiting on a chest x-ray to confirm that the placement was wrong. And in the meantime, while we're waiting on that, the anesthesiologist said it was placed wrong because literally only one side of his fucking chest is inflating. He dies. Okay. A patient had a heart rate of 40, and the resident started doing chest compressions on him, which is not what you do. And then he decides to push epi. He throws some pads on him to defibrillate the guy in bradycardia. Okay, he has a heart rate of 40 and a stable, bradycardic rhythm. We just need to give him some atropine and pace him. He fucking defibrillates him and kills him. And I was literally ran out of the patient's room to get the director of nursing who was standing out there. And I'm like, can you stop him? He's going to kill that patient. He's going to kill that patient if he defibrillates him with bradycardia and a heart rate of 40. And the director of nursing just shook his head, and I turned around and he killed the dude. Okay. There was a nurse who placed an NG tube into some guy's lungs and filled his lungs with tube feeding. There was a nurse who confused a long-acting insulin with a short-acting insulin and gave 30 units of a fast-acting insulin and killed the guy. I told you about the patient where like all that like purulent drainage just kept seeping into his lungs because the ET tube cuff was leaking and nobody has a fucking manometer here to check the pressures. And I finally figured that out. And I kept saying, hey, you know what? His white blood cell count is steadily like, we're having a problem with it. Like, do you want to start some antibiotics? No. Well, does he have a fever? And I said, no, he doesn't have a fever. They didn't want to start antibiotics. Nurse finally got a chest x-ray. He has full-blown pneumonia now. I've been telling them this for a while, but because he didn't have a fever, they didn't want to give him antibiotics. We have a nurse who fell asleep at the fucking nurse's station while we were all in rooms, and her norepinephrine ran out, and the guy had no fucking blood pressure and didn't perfuse his brain. Dialysis machine that she has never done before. She said she'll figure it out. Okay. I'm pretty fucking smart and I figure a lot of shit out, but I would never attempt to try and figure out a CRRT machine on the fly. We are adequately staffed. There's a shit ton of staff in there. And we have a nurse who does CRRT in there. She has a different patient load. We told them hey, let's just swap these nurses. So the one that knows how to work this machine can work this machine, but they didn't do that. So I'm pretty sure that patient will be dead here in a couple hours. We're not treating the COVID, guys. For real, we're not treating the COVID. I tried calling advocacy groups. I tried talking with management here, the nursing admin. Nothing. Nobody's doing anything. And this is going to be kind of an extreme example. This is really the only thing I can come up with. It's if we were in Nazi Germany and they were taking the Jews to go put them in a gas chamber, I'm the one there saying, hey, this is not good. This is bad. This is wrong. We should not be doing this. And then everyone tells me, hang in there. You're doing a great job. You can't save everybody. You're amazing. You're a great nurse. Guys, I know I'm a fucking good nurse. I know I go in there and I give it 500% every day. I know I'm not being negligent. Okay, I fucking know that. What I need is someone to help me save these people from being killed. Okay, from gross negligence and complete medical mismanagement. And no one is listening to me. How many times have I told you they've assigned me a dead person? How long have they been dead? Nobody knows. How is anybody assessing anything without a stethoscope? Normally we have those disposable stethoscopes, but I knew what we were coming into, so I brought my old junky one. Nobody has listened to anybody's lungs as long as I've been here, even with disposable stethoscopes. I keep telling them that, the guys are my patient's going acidotic. We need to do something about this before his kidneys shut down, give him some bicarb or something like that. And this is what they do. They let the patient's blood get acidotic. Their kidneys shut down. And then at the last minute, they finally decide to run bicarb. So they run 5 liters of bicarb into a person who's gained 20 pounds of water weight and completely throw him into heart failure. And he dies several hours later. The next shift, he was dead. And they assigned him to me. And he was already in a body bag. The next shift, he was dead. And they assigned him to me. And he was already in a body bag. Guys, they're not dying of COVID, okay? Yeah, people are gonna fucking die of COVID. Yeah, some people legit will end up with multi-organ failures and will legit throw the clots and kill them, and die, people. I fucking know this. I'm not some fucking new grad, okay? That's gonna save everybody in the world, okay? I am literally telling you that they're murdering these people, and nobody will listen to me. I mean, like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that when you defibrillate somebody with a heartbeat of 40 in a stable rhythm and you kill them, that's murder. And I'm pretty sure that when you put somebody's PEEP up to like 25 and PEEP doesn't go past, I think, like 15, 20, and you blow their lungs out and they die, I'm pretty sure that's murder. I've just watched a doctor drop a central line and fucking rupture like the subclavian like vein, and the guy fucking bled to death. I mean, COVID didn't break that central line. COVID didn't kill that guy. I mean, he was a COVID patient. I mean, every single patient I've taken care of, guys, is a COVID patient. You know, when I try and talk with some of the other nurses here, and they're like, well, you can't save everybody. And they all know what's happening. They all agree with me, and they all just shake their heads. And I'm like, am I the only one who is not a sociopath? Can someone come up with like some type of a solution for me? Because I'm kind of out of ideas.
Wow. So, yeah, that's what's going on. And the nurse, at the beginning, again, she said this is the second hospital that she's been at. She was at a different hospital, and she's not even from New York. So she came in New York to help, and then this is what happens. And then she went from one hospital. She ended up leaving that hospital because of a similar issue. Now she's at another hospital. She got transferred from one unit to another for trying to report what's going on to to her higher ups, about what's happening with the patient that she's trying to take care of, because she's trying to save the patient's life. And then she ends up getting transferred. So this is the kind of management that they're using. This is in a predominantly Black and Latino community, and it's a public hospital, by the way, in New York City, and people are dying like this. So the question is it COVID that's so deadly, or is it these the way that they're treating the patients when they come into the hospital that's deadly? This type of thing has been, well documented for a long time, that these hospitals kill people, that these doctors kill people. And now you throw into a high pressure situation, a situation where all the staff is scared for their lives. And it gets that much worse. So my question is, while apparently the medical system, because they're very good at coming up with these pretty diagrams of like, this is the virus and these are the spike proteins that are coming off, and they make these computer graphics and stuff to make it look like they really know exactly what the virus looks like and everything like this. And then but when it comes down to actually what do we do about this virus, the ones who are in the hospitals trying to save these people, or maybe not, this is what's going on. They don't have answers. So what's wrong with going to the people who, again, in Africa, if there was more than 10 or 20 deaths in some of these countries, it's been months now, somebody would have blown the whistle on them if every country in Africa is covering it up. You see? So clearly, they have a better handle on it than the system over here does. So again, if you're looking for African remedies, I'm going to say this once again. Shout out to the Earth Center. Check out the earthcenter.org. Check out Ancosta Natural Healing for natural African remedies that work. Okay, I'm just going to put that in there real quick, and we're going to move to the next thing. We pulled up some information from the CDC. They are now keeping track of the number of deaths in comparison, the COVID deaths in comparison to what normally is the death rate. How many total deaths in these different areas. And you'll see, most places in the United States, the death rate is not higher than what it normally is. Actually, and if we could see that bigger, actually in the whole United States, you can see actually 98% of the normal death rate. In New York City, somehow 230%, meaning over double the normal number of deaths in New York City. So, you know, that's very significant. That's very significant. Because most other places in the United States, it's either slightly above normal or slightly below normal, you see, and you can argue that that kind of variation is normal, but now New York City, 230%. So what's happening in New York? And you got a picture there with the video, a little bit of what's happening in New York, a little bit. And again, these are not the only ones to blow the whistle there. However, we don't have time to show all of that. We'll be coming up with our investigative report soon, and I want before our next episode, we're going to have that out. But in the meantime, you know, again, please keep asking questions, because there's more to this than just, oh, there's this new plague, deadly virus, and so on. Okay. So recently, a couple days ago, the governor of New York, you know, because they keep pushing this shelter-in-place strategy. A couple days ago, the governor of New York came out and said that most of the new coronavirus patients are people that have been staying home. When it says most, you know, and if you read the article from CNBC, 66% or 2/3 of the new COVID patients are people who have been sheltering in place, so to speak. Okay. How are this many people still coming into the hospital sick with COVID-19 if this shelter in place strategy is working? Well, if our governmental authorities really want to save lives, I think they'll take a little bit different approach than what they've been doing, than just saying stay home and that's it. There have been some, you know, different techniques, some different strategies used for trying to fight COVID-19. Now, one of the controversial ones is hydroxychloroquine, which the president had endorsed, saying people should try it. It's something that not only, like, it's mostly known as an anti-malarial drug, and also for people with lupus, but apparently it's been shown that that can also work for coronaviruses in general, and has been used for coronaviruses in general for a while. Because when you get malaria, what do you get? If you don't know, you get fever. When you get the flu, you get fever. So there are some common symptoms there. So this hydroxychloroquine is also, it's like a synthetic quinine. So if you don't know what quinine is, it's the main ingredient in tonic water, which has some medicinal properties as well. So hydroxychloroquine, you know, there was controversial because people were digging up dirt and saying the president owns some stock or something in hydroxychloroquine, so he has interest in promoting that. Well, you know, studies have come out, reports have come out that it works. So, I mean, it seems like some people, just because the president said it, they're automatically against it. But this one says even South Korea, the country, is recommending this particular drug. And if you look it up, you look up doctors who have been saying that they've been treating COVID with this drug. Now, Anthony Fauci has said, you know, the head of the NA, you know, whatever, the Institute of National Institute of allergy and infectious diseases. Anthony Fauci, the same guy who's been advising the president and advising everybody who will listen on what to do, and he's the one who's basically pushing these protocols that we're using. And he said that that is the successes of hydroxychloroquine has been anecdotal. When you say anecdotal, what that means is it's just like based on somebody saying that they used it and it worked, but it hasn't been studied in a laboratory. Now, the problem is, while thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are dying, and we're saying that clinical trials are going to take months and years for drugs and vaccines that may or may not be effective. You have something that they're saying works now. And apparently, again, this guy who supposedly cares so much about the American public and everybody's life is saying don't use it because it's not scientifically proven. But they have to use something in the hospital. They're pumping these people full of all types of drugs, putting them on ventilators, all types of different treatments that they're giving. But they're saying, oh, don't use the one that has been known to work for coronaviruses because, you know, it hasn't been proven. I mean, what kind of nonsense are we really dealing with here? We're going to move on from that. Some other, again, ideas about what people can do for treatment. By the way, when we talk about ventilators, I talked about this last week, but again, 80% of people in New York are dying who are put on ventilators for COVID. They're dying. So they keep talking about ventilators save lives. Is it really? I don't know. Those 20% of people living, would they have lived anyway without the ventilator? Those 80% of people dying, would they have died anyway without the ventilator? That's a good question, because I would argue and say more than likely those 80% of people dying, I don't think 80% of them would be dying if they're left off the ventilator. But, you know, who am I? I'm not a doctor, but apparently the doctors don't know so much either. Here's another experimental treatment that's coming out. A couple things, and we're just going to show one of them. But one of the things that they're coming out with is they can inject some blood from a person who has the COVID antibody into a person who is sick, or, you know, and their antibodies will work almost like a vaccine to fight the virus. Yeah, good luck with that one. And then another one, this one is hilarious actually, because apparently they found out, or they noticed, that less women are dying than men. More men are dying than women with COVID-19. So what they're saying is they'll have an experiment to inject men with female hormones to fight COVID-19. Now, mind you, it's not to say that women are not dying from this disease. So what's the logic here? The women are dying too. Maybe more men are dying, but just the female hormone didn't save the women who died. That makes no sense whatsoever. But you're going to inject a hormone into someone to make them more feminine, which is the same thing they do when they're giving people sex changes and, you know, making people transgender. Very interesting, huh? The Florida governor, last week we reported that Florida has started phase 1 of reopening the state. The Florida governor had a press release, or not a press release, a press conference a few days ago, and he gave a little update on the plan for more antibody testing and contact tracing. Let's see.
information about COVID-19.
Okay.
Black people are not immune to COVID-19, period. In fact, COVID-19 can pose a greater risk to Black people. Now's the time to separate fact from fiction. The numbers don't lie. Based on the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, COVID-19 is extremely harmful to older adults and those with a compromised immune system.
Okay, please pause the video. Please pause the video. I hope you like that nice little diagram of exactly how the virus looks in CG. Black people are more, that wasn't the video I was looking for, but I'm definitely going to comment on this because, it was interesting when when COVID first hit the scene, that Black people are like, are we immune to this virus? How come we're not hearing about Black people getting it? Well, now Black people are getting it, and a lot of Black people are dying in America, or in the United States, I should say, and United Kingdom. Also, you should look at Africa because Black people in Africa are not dying. So apparently it has nothing to do with being Black or not. It has to do with the health of the individual and the treatment that they're receiving. And you can see on both sides, there's a big problem for Black communities because on one side we know there's a lot of a lot of health problems in the Black community in general in the U.S. And you also know that, based on what we've seen from this New York hospital, you can get a picture for how Black people are being treated in the hospital. But basically what's happening in Florida is they're starting these antibody tests. I'm going to show a quick video too of a researcher who works in California to talk more about an antibody test that he's done in California.
COVID infection. Okay, so what does that mean? First thing, right around the time when we were doing the study, there had been about 1,000 cases of COVID found, of COVID infection, active SARS-CoV-2 infection found within the county.
Right.
So there's about 2 million people in the county. If 4% have evidence of infection, that means that there's about 85 times more people who've had it per person that actually identified having it.
That's the critical finding.
Yeah, and if it's on the low end, it'd be 2.8, it'd be 50 times. So for every single person that the healthcare system in Santa Clara County is identified as having the virus actively in them, there are 50 people out there who had it and that never showed up with a positive test. It's the COVID infection is substantially more common in the population than we realized prior to this study.
All right. And
so, as you can see, and just to break down what that means, when you're coming up with a percentage is just a fraction. You have a numerator and a denominator. You have a numerator and a denominator. So the numerator is the number of deaths. The bigger the numerator is, the bigger the percentage. The denominator is the number of cases. So the bigger the denominator is, the lower the percentage. So the number of COVID deaths stays the same, but according to the study, the number of coronavirus, people who have actually had the coronavirus, and most of them, have had it and then gotten over it with maybe no symptoms or without ever getting tested, not going to the hospital to get tested, right? So that number jumps 50 to 80 times. Now, I don't have time to show every bit of that talk. It's like 40 minutes long, but you can look it up on YouTube. That talk, he's saying that according to his data, the estimated death rate is more like 0.1 or 0.2%, which the seasonal flu has a death rate of 0.1% approximately. So that means there's not really a big difference. So is this disease, again, that's the question, is this disease, yes, it's deadly, but is this disease as deadly as what they're saying? We're going to keep going. Contact tracing is another strategy that they're talking about, and the Florida governor said that they'll be using contact tracing as they have been from the beginning. I'm not sure what that means. This is something from a national agency about creating a kind of force of or a staff, like a nationwide staff of people to do contact tracing for COVID-19. But once you set up an office like this, just like after 9/11, they came up with the Department of Homeland Security. That Department of Homeland Security is not going away, folks. Whatever this agency that they're going to come out with to do contact tracing, once it's established, I can imagine, or I can guess, that it's not going to be just a temporary thing. So what is contact tracing? Well, when you look up on the CDC and try to figure out what the US means by contact tracing, basically they're saying, oh, you came down with COVID. Okay, who have you been around the last several days? Who have you been around the last week or so? So we can isolate those people and say, you guys might be infected. You've been around, someone with COVID. However, the way contact tracing is used in real life in other countries, such as China, such as South Korea, is that they use people's cell phone data, the tracking information from where that person's been. If your cell phone is connected to this Wi-Fi network, this other person's cell phone, who else's cell phone has been connected to that Wi-Fi network or been close to it? Because apparently, even if your phone can see the network, that means that there's a record there of what networks you've been close to. And I'm sure anyone who's on Facebook has had the creepy experience of having a suggested friend request based on somebody that they just maybe met randomly at a place and didn't know before, and then suddenly that's a friend suggestion for them. When you look the next day or you look the next hour or something like this, it'll be in your suggested friends. How do they know this? Good question. So contact tracing is something that, again, is going to become more of it's going to become more of an industry. It's going to become more of an established and very recognized thing that the government is doing to keep track of people's movements, who they've been around, and so on, which could be used to see, maybe you've been in contact with someone who had this disease, or it could be used for many other ways. Use your imagination there. I don't think I have to go far with that. We're going to keep going. We have a special guest today, and there were some other things that I wanted to get into. Let me see here. You guys probably heard that there's a lab in Wuhan, China, that potentially was the one to leak the virus. You may have heard that a few years ago, Anthony Fauci, the NIH under Anthony Fauci, gave millions of dollars to this Wuhan lab to research coronaviruses and how, and something to do with bats and coronavirus. Isn't it interesting now that they immediately came out and said, oh, this coronavirus came from bats? How do they know? They've been doing the research on the bats. What you may not have heard about China is that in China, there have been massive protests before the coronavirus hit. And that since that took place, there are a lot of questionable things have happened in China. So this brother we're going to be talking to now, Brother RO, he spent several years in China, and he happened to be there when they shut down China and actually got stuck in China for a few months. And so he was there for that experience. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Brother Casabez. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being patient with us today. I know things didn't go as planned, so I'm glad you're here to join us. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in China?
Well, the last 3 months, I was obviously stuck there. I flew in from India on January 20th, and by the 23rd, they had pretty much everything locked down. So I only planned to be there about 2 or 3 days, but I ended up being stuck there for 3 months. But before that, I lived there for 8 years and then 2 years off and on.
Okay. So, can you just tell, because, you know, in the U.S., we don't get a lot of people who travel to China that I know, you know, and definitely not that much news about it. So what can you tell us about China in general?
In general, the Chinese cities are what you would expect from any city. But the thing is, I know a lot of people kind of misunderstand. 90% of China is basically countryside with farmers. So we see the big cities on TV, you know, Beijing, Shanghai. There's another big city, Guangzhou. There are a lot of cities with millions of people living there, but it's what, 1.3, 1.4 billion in China. So if you're not in a city, I mean, China is basically farmland, beautiful farmland, but I'm just saying the idea that everyone has of China as being such a high technology, you know, everything futuristic, like, no, that's not China. China is mostly farmland.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So what can you tell us about your experience in lockdown?
My experience in lockdown was stressful because obviously I couldn't go outside, so I couldn't get any sunlight. My food options were kind of limited because it wasn't safe to go outside for me, but not because of the virus. It was because of, I guess, China. Eventually, halfway through, China turned the virus into a Black people or African thing. So I couldn't go outside because I would have been identified as a illegal foreigner living in the apartment complex. And I'm sure that's all, you know, older Chinese people do. They just sit by the window and look for things outside. So they would have called and I would have been detained. I mean, arrested is basically what you want to call it, but I would have been detained. So I couldn't go outside. I could only order food. So I still had food. There was never a food shortage. Maybe for the first week there was some panic buying. So, you know, fruits and vegetables kind of ran out pretty quickly. But there was never a food delivery problem or a food problem. The main problem was just not being able to go outside and having to, if I did go outside, I went outside twice in 3 months. And those 2 times, you have to get your temperature checked. You have to get your QR code checked. And it's just having to deal with so many different security guards or police. It just makes the situation stressful because then you're going to run into a problem that has nothing to do with the virus and it has everything to do with someone's bad attitude at the moment. So to avoid those situations, I just had to stay in. And of course, I didn't want to get reported because I've been through that before over there already. So I just stayed in.
Wow. You know, in the US, it was there was some panic buying, but fruits and vegetables were never out of stock because
Yeah, I heard that.
Fruits and vegetables like that. People sold out of pasta, pancake mix, toilet paper, disinfectant, dish soap. I couldn't find dish soap one time at Jewel. But anyway, what could you tell us a little bit more about the QR code? You said you had to get your QR code scanned. What is that?
Here, maybe I could find a picture. But the QR code, it was a code that was linked to your phone number. And if you don't know, your phone number in China controls everything, because everything, 99% of everything is digitally paid for. And so in order to connect your bank account to your phone number is like almost just important as your ID number. So anyway, maybe a month into the virus, they came up with these QR codes because they were saying people were silent carriers. And so what the QR code is supposed to do, of course, it didn't work, but what it's supposed to do is trace your movement, and it's an algorithm to determine your risk of being asymptomatic carrier, or your risk of coming into contact with other carriers. So the last time I went outside, which was Walmart, so those are the two times, both times I went to Walmart for food, you had to scan your QR code. So everywhere you go, you scan your QR code. And so from that, they track your movement history with the algorithm. And if anyone in that particular area is confirmed to have had the virus, then you are now at risk. So your QR code will change from green. So there were 3 colors. There were green, yellow, and red. If your code is red, you better not be outside in the first place. So that's automatic. If it's yellow, maybe it turned yellow and you didn't know, and green is okay. But your code changes to yellow because the algorithm decides that you've been in close enough contact with someone who's been confirmed to have had the virus. But I don't particularly believe that, because I mean, like, my code changed from green to yellow. I tried to fly from my city. I was in Shenzhen. I tried to fly up north to Shanghai and then fly from Shanghai to Taiwan. They blocked my Taiwan flight for some price gouging reasons by the airline. So I had to fly back from Shanghai to Shenzhen. So I spent 24 hours in the hospital, not the hospital, in the airport. And by the time I got back to my city, Shenzhen, my QR code changed from green to yellow, because as far as the algorithm knows, I've been exposed to a plane full of people. I waited in the airport for 24 hours and then took a plane back. So someone in the airport, you know, it's not like we walked next to each other, but someone in that airport had been confirmed to have the virus. So that's why my code changed. So I had to register for a new code with a different phone number. And that's how I was able to travel again when I flew through Vancouver. But if I would have tried to use my old QR code, I might have had problems.
Wow. So
can you see this?
Uh-huh.
So this is the one I use to get in and out my apartment. This is one that I use to get on one of the flights. So each thing you do, you have to get a new QR code. So you can see my seat number right there, 13J.
Mm-hmm.
So each thing you do, you have to use your phone number, get the code, and kind of, it's like you're clocking in and out, like at work. You know, you let them know you came into this place at this time, you leave, it kind of clocks you out, and that's how they track your movements. As far as I'm concerned, that has nothing to do with the virus, but hey, you know, that's just my opinion.
Right.
So yeah, and it's still like that now. And in Hong Kong, it's the bracelets, but it's the same principle as the QR codes.
Mm. Wow. So basically, you know, like I was just mentioning about contact tracing, they're trying to implement that more in the United States and have more of like a dedicated staff for that, for professionals and lay people as well. So, you know, and he said it's still like that in China. I can imagine it's not going away anytime soon.
Exactly. It's not going anywhere.
So you had mentioned that you have to use your QR code to get out of your house, apartment. Explain what, you know, the actual lockdown procedures to keep people in their house.
Well, the apartment blocks in China are huge. You know, they're like huge mini cities, but they're really weird and unsafe because there's only one way in and one way out. And even before the virus, that's how they, you know, kept control of people because there's always security at the gate. Like security at the gate doesn't mean that it's a high risk crime area. They just use that to just monitor the people. So about, like I said, about a month and a half in, they came up with the QR codes. And so I guess they realized a lot of people were just staying in, and a lot of people were illegally, by their words, a lot of people were illegally moving to different apartments. So you have to scan your code with the security guard when you're coming back in. So when you're out, you can just leave out through the front door, no problem. But you're not going to get in without the QR code that shows that you're registered in that apartment. It shows your national ID number, and it shows your health status, and they still take your temperature. So, I mean, that was the last time I went out. I didn't want to deal with that. So that's why it was the last time I went out, because I'm not going to be showing my code and letting them take my temperature. And I mean, it depends on the security guard there at that moment. If he says, you can't come in, you can't come in. I mean, it doesn't matter if he just started the job yesterday. He's not a doctor. He doesn't know anything about anything, but he's the security guard right there. If he says you can't get into your apartment, you can't get in, especially me as a foreigner. Like, I have absolutely I have nothing. I can't do anything. And the security guards, I mean, just working people in general over there, they were super stressed out because they have all this extra work to do now. They have to take everyone's temperature. They have to do this. They have to do that. So they were really pissed off all the time. So that was a risk that I didn't want to take as far as going in and out. It was possible to go in and out, but I didn't want to take that risk because of the reaction to the virus, and also because of the reporting, the whole thing that was going on with Blacks and Africans. Like, I didn't even want to put my friends at risk by going in and out of the apartment, because then the people around me would be monitored a little more. So I just stayed put just to avoid all that. But yeah, and still to this day, QR code to get into your own apartment. It doesn't matter if the security guard knows you. It doesn't matter if he's been knowing you for years. If you don't have the active QR code, then you're not getting back into your apartment.
Wow. And you were saying too that they have like a lock that they'll put on your apartment door too, so that you can't even get out. Yeah.
There was some videos, the situation in Guangzhou with the Africans. And so it's like a pull gate. You know, they're usually outside of most everyone's door, and it's yours. I mean, it's yours for security. But what they were doing, they would close it. The government, I'm saying they would close it and put their own lock on it. They would lock it from the outside. Usually you lock your own from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So they put their lock on it and lock it from the outside, and they weren't letting the Africans in Guangzhou leave or move around or go to the hospital or go to the supermarket. In other places, it wasn't that extreme. Where I was and around where I was, if someone in the apartment was confirmed to have the virus, they would just put tape on the outside of your door so they can see if you came in or came out. And I mean, I don't know the penalty if you came in or came out, but I don't think anyone really even tried to go out. So, I mean, when they brought your deliveries, they would just open the door and you get your groceries and they close the door again and tape it back up.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you about a couple of things real quick. First of all, you were saying that there were some protests happening in China that no one really outside of China knows about. Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, I think everyone knows about the Hong Kong protests, right? So those were known of worldwide, but the past, I would say, actually 10 years, there have been a lot of protests in China in a lot of the small countryside areas because of the Chinese factories. China is throwing up these factories like, I mean, every week it's a new factory somewhere. And within months, more than half of the population of the small town develops cancer from the waste from the factory. So this has been happening for a long time in China, and people in China are starting to protest this. They have been protesting this. So in the city of Wuhan, there were supposed to be large protests right before, kind of at the end of the year last year, October, November, December, and they were protesting these factories. Now, you know, you do not protest in China at all. You don't even say anything bad about the government as a joke, or else you can be taken away, because whoever you told is gonna tell on you. So even between friends, speaking freely is not possible, because your friend can possibly report you. So no one says anything like that. So just think of a protest as even 1,000 times bigger than just saying something bad about the government. So a lot of free speaking people in China, they were relating the response to the virus. They were relating that to stopping the protest. And there are a lot of free speaking people in China, but they would never actually say it to another Chinese person, like I said. So I felt like I got a lot of kind of secret insider information, because they feel safe telling me, but they would never tell another Chinese person. But with me being a foreigner, with them knowing my personality, they felt safe telling me. So it's a lot of things that I've been told about China that surprised me. But I know they would never say it to another Chinese person. So yeah, the protests in China, they're usually covered up with some other big news, maybe some terrorist news, or, you know, it'll be another big event that happens, but it just happens to cover up the protest. It happens to cover up what they did to the protest. That's all.
Wow, wow. And you were telling me too that there was a lot of people who stopped paying their cell phone bill, and like as you were saying earlier, your cell phone is like your lifeline there, so it's not likely that people are just going to voluntarily stop paying it. And to the tune of 21 million people, is that right?
Right. So the overseas reports, you know, not from China, they will just say, oh, they study the numbers. So China Mobile, China Unicom, and China Telecom, those are the three biggest wireless carriers over there. So between them, they lost 21 million. So each one lost about 8 or 7 million users. And if you don't have a phone number in China, you basically don't exist. You can't get on the bus. You can't get on the train. You can't do anything. You need your phone number to pay for everything. Because like I said, your phone number is connected to your bank account. Your bank account is connected to whatever app you use to pay. The two apps over there is WeChat and Alipay. So if those people are not paying their bills anymore, it's not by choice, because you need, if you had a number already, you need it now more than ever. So it's not like just a bunch of grandmas who, you know, don't use the phone that much, they don't need it. No, these are people who had active numbers for years and they are no longer paying their bills. And the news inside China will say that it's because of a business slowdown. Will say, okay, people are in their houses more, they can use their home Wi-Fi, and they don't need to pay their cellular bills anymore. But these people are ordering everything. So we weren't able to go outside. So in order to order anything, supplies, food for the house, anything, you still need your phone number to order online. So what they were saying about people online not needing the wireless plans because they have Wi-Fi now, it doesn't matter if you have Wi-Fi or not. Your payment is still linked to your phone number. So that doesn't make any sense. And the other reason they said is a business slowdown. Like, okay, I can believe that, but not to the tune of 21 million people.
And so the other bit of information that you shared with me, and please to our viewers, you know, you can look all this up yourself on whatever, YouTube or Google. And you were saying that there's been like a large number of urns being brought into some of these, crematories or funeral homes?
Right. So that was a report from Wuhan, and the official Chinese death toll, I think they raised it now, but a month ago they were saying around 2,500. So there were reports, pictures, you know, confirmed pictures and confirmed dated pictures there were trucks delivering urns for the families to collect their cremated family members. The truck holds 5,000 urns, and these deliveries were going on for weeks. So the official death toll number that China was giving a month ago for the whole country was around 2,500. But just from this one crematorium, I think there were 4 in Wuhan, if I remember correctly from the report. So just for this one crematorium, there were 5,000 urns delivered weekly, daily for weeks. So, I mean, that's obviously more than the 2,500. And I mean, the people that are picking up these urns, you have to remember, most people in China don't even know about the block that China has on the internet. So they're not going to get on Chinese social media and talk about this. And they're not going to get on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and talk about this. They're just going to take their urn and go home and just mind their business. They don't want anything to do with saying anything bad about the government. So these were freelance reports that got this information. These were not the people picking up the urns. They would never say this. They would never, no, they would not do that. So, yeah.
Okay, brother Aro, man, I really appreciate that. I wish we had some more time, but maybe as things develop, we'll get another chance to talk again. But yeah, again, thanks a lot for tuning in with us today. And that's our show for today. We ran a little bit over our usual hour, so we're gonna call it one right here. So again, to all of you who may be watching this, thanks for watching to the end. And I'll say, take care of yourself, stay healthy, stay safe, and definitely stay open-minded and stay questioning what's going on, because everything is not how it appears. All right. Everybody, take care and have a good one.
All right. Thanks for having me.